Do you want to finally learn how to make videos? Don't feel like paying crazy sums or monthly subscriptions for the rest of your life? Tired of annoying watermarks? Or living like a pirate?
FBI, open up!
There is one way. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my long-awaited second part of DaVinci Resolve tutorial series. I think it's gonna be pretty hard for me today to keep it short, so again, you have the timestamps, you can pick the parts you want to watch and skip the rest. That said, it's highly recommended to watch the whole video because today's topic is editing. Last time we managed to gather all the materials we needed and the program itself as well. When you first start the program, it's gonna give you some options of customization along with importing shortcuts from Premiere, but I'm actually gonna show you my own shortcuts today. The first screen you're gonna see after that is your projects management screen. You can also very easily set up autosave, which I highly recommend because in case your PC just dies or the program doesn't respond, you don't lose all of your data and your projects remain saved. We're gonna go ahead now and create a new project and its name shall be Anagod 3. Our project actually started on the wrong page, so we need to switch from the deliver page to the edit page. Now, we're gonna go over some basic settings that you should take care of in the very beginning, as you can't change them later. This is very important. So pay attention. That's why we're gonna click File, Project Settings, for which I use the keyboard shortcut Alt-Enter back from Sony Vegas. And the most important thing here to set is the frame rate. Frame rate represents the number of pictures that are shown during the playback of your video in 1 second. You see, a video is not some magical thing, it's just a very fast sequence of pretty similar pictures. I recommend your timeline frame rate to be the same as most of your source clips that you're going to edit from. Our main footage is 60 FPS game footage here. We have some 30 FPS camera, some slow motion, but we're gonna use 60. We're gonna do this in full HD, which we can also change later, but we cannot change the frame rate, at least when you start editing, and that's a pretty big downside of Resolve. And that's pretty much all the important stuff. I can click cancel, you can click save if you change anything, I didn't, and we can get to importing our video. Probably the easiest way is to click the media pool, drag in some folder from Windows, come on, there we go, and then just drag the files inside the media pool, okay? Now, I didn't experience any trouble during this process, but you might. For example, when trying to import a .mkv file from OBS Studio. These files you have to convert before you edit them by clicking File, Remux Recordings, choosing your files and converting them inside OBS Studio. I promise you we're gonna start editing soon, but first we have to take a look at some keyboard shortcuts. Click DaVinci Resolve Keyboard Customization. Now, my own personal shortcuts are not far from the DaVinci Resolve defaults, but I have 3 very important ones I have to show you. I'm also providing you with a link in the description where you can download my shortcuts and import them into the software using the import preset button. I highly recommend doing so if you're gonna learn DaVinci Resolve using my tutorials. The first custom shortcut is S for split clip. That's also a very basic thing that I carried from 10 years of Sony Vegas. Next one is E for end to playhead. And then Q for start to playhead. You might not understand this at the moment, but don't worry, today you will. Now we can finally go to work. So we're gonna close this window and I'll show you how to properly edit a video. I would start off with 2 things. As you can see, I have a gameplay video here and I only have to hover my mouse above it to already see a very small preview. If I want to make it bigger, I only have to double click the video and it shows up in the preview window where I can already do some basic stuff with it. If I drag this little playhead right here, I can go through the whole video very quickly and efficiently. Doing this allows me to control which part of this video I want to work with later on my timeline. For example, I have this annoying window in my source video that I really don't want to see in my final product. What do? So I just drag the playhead until the message disappears. Then I can press I. That sets the in point, the start of my video. On the contrary, I can go to the very end when I stop, and then I can press O, which sets my out point, where the video ends. So that's from here to here. I don't want to work with the rest anymore. This can be extremely useful, especially with very long source clips that you only want to use a small part of. If you're done with that, you can just simply click inside the video and drag it to your timeline. And what's a timeline, you might ask? We have one track here that represents the video, and we have a second and a third track which represent the audio. My Shadowplay recording has two audio tracks, one for my voice and one for the gameplay sounds. Now when you first start Resolve, you might see your tracks like this. Don't worry, you can change that easily. You just have to click the icon over here, and there you can change the appearance of your tracks. You can choose a thumbnail preview, you can use a film strip preview. You can also change the height of the tracks and customize them to your liking. I recommend a film strip preview simply because it allows you to see the video, how it looks in certain parts without even playing it, without going through it, and you can make quick adjustments in your head. You can also show the waveform of your audio. That is by far the most important thing for me personally. It allows me to see the audio, see how it behaves before I even click on it. Because I've been doing this for several years, I can already tell these were clapping sounds before I even played them. And that's huge. Now, a bit of timeline navigation. If you hold the Alt key and scroll the mouse wheel, the timeline will zoom in and out around your playhead. That means if I zoom out, place the playhead here and zoom in, I can very quickly navigate the timeline. It allows you to both adjust your details and see the big picture, and that's why I consider it the best navigation tool of them all. Another thing is when you're adjusting details and you're zoomed way in and you just want to see the big picture for a quick glance and you want to go back in, then you can press Shift Z. That gives you a convenient quick view of the whole timeline, and you can also press Shift Z again to go back. This is a very powerful navigation tool which acts as a toggle between your current specific workspace and the whole thing. Now we need to synchronize our tracks. We need to synchronize this gameplay track with a webcam that was recorded at the same time. Even without setting in and out points, we can pull in the webcam track, but you have to be careful not to overwrite your gameplay, so you just have to put it on another track. You don't have to create that track manually. If you just pull the clip up, Resolve automatically creates a new track for you. Now we can manually synchronize the clips by looking at the audio waveforms. I'm just moving the playhead and using the shortcut Alt mouse wheel to navigate the timeline and get a closer look. And then I move either one of the clips so that the waveforms in Audio 2 and Audio 3 tracks match. You can see that I'm moving all three tracks together, and that's because they're linked. If I just wanted to move one of them, I would have to hold the Alt key. Then I can bypass the linking and move individual clips and get them out of sync, which is represented by these red numbers. These numbers show up every time linked clips get out of sync, so I'm just gonna move them back together. You can customize your interface by making certain elements bigger. For example, I can move this timeline to get more space for working with my tracks here. That of course means the preview is gonna get smaller in turn, so you always have to choose what's more important at the moment. As I said and demonstrated, you don't have to go through the in and out point setting when you're importing clips on your timeline. You can just bypass that and put them straight on your timeline. No problem. Then, however, you will be forced to work with the clip in its entirety on the timeline. That is no problem either. You can just pull the end of the clip to make it shorter in the beginning. When doing that, you can also hear what's happening in the clip as you are cutting it and making it shorter. Now, you can just select all of your clips and put them all the way to the left to make it more tidy. That's just a personal thing for me. On the left, you can see the list of your video and audio tracks. You can see here that video 2 is empty, and we can delete it because we don't need it. We just right click and click delete track. And you can see that our webcam just became the new video 2 track because the software is so smart it automatically removes the gap between 1 and 3. You can also temporarily disable and enable certain tracks, audio and video. You can mute and solo the audio tracks. Muted tracks are simply the ones that are not enabled, and solo tracks are the only ones that are enabled. If you solo a track, it's the only one you can hear. With no solo, no mute, you can hear everything. In case of video, you can also disable and enable whole tracks, and the tracks above are displayed on top of the tracks below. In our case, the webcam is above and on top of the gameplay. But what if we wanted to see both at the same time and have the webcam somewhere in a corner and a little bit smaller or something like that? That's what the Inspector tab is for. Now, you might not see it when you first start Resolve, and you might see these two viewers instead. One of the viewers is your timeline and one of the viewers is your source, the file you're importing onto the timeline. You can see here, this is the timeline and this is the source. We don't need both of them right now, and we need the Inspector instead. The Inspector allows us to change specific attributes of individual clips. One of the many things you can do in the Inspector is change the size, position, angle, and you can do that by multiple ways. The easiest and most natural way is to open the transform box below the preview window and just change the size of the box using your mouse. You can also move the box to your desired place. I usually have my webcam right here and in a little circle. I'm going to teach you that in the color tab later. Now we also want to crop the webcam. Just choose crop in the drop-down menu and crop your webcam using the mouse again. It's very easy and intuitive. You can also switch back to transform, move the webcam again. You could also do other things with it if you wanted to. Oh snap, I certainly didn't want to do that. Control Z and it's back. That's one of the most universal and useful shortcuts. Please learn this one. It'll save you a lot of time and it can even save your whole project. If you want to be a little more precise, you can also transform the image by using these fields. One way is to type in these fields. So for example, we can round up 674 to just 670. You can also adjust these values by just holding down your mouse and sliding across these fields. There's a little bug in Resolve that does these weird jumps when you do this, but otherwise it's a very precise and useful tool. You'll have to decide for yourself which one of the ways to transform your image is the right one for you. As I said, position X and position Y are not the only values you can edit. You can also rotate your image. You can also rotate your image in 3D space using the pitch and yaw sliders. You can do basically whatever you want with the image. Well, this is kind of unusual, but why not? Now hold on a second, we started editing this video without even first watching it. To do that, you can just move the playhead to the beginning of your timeline and then click into some empty space and press, well, the space key. This allows you to watch the whole timeline and preview what you've done so far. If your preview gets a bit laggy, you can solve that two ways, even with a slow computer. Although I really recommend a strong CPU and GPU, you can see my own computer in the video description, there are workarounds. In the playback menu, choose proxy mode and change your resolution to either half or quarter of the original size. This lowers the quality of your preview but makes your computer render a lot fewer pixels, which gives you a great boost in speed. The second thing you can do that doesn't even impact your quality is render proxy files. Newly created proxy files are a lot more suitable for editing than your standard H.264. You can basically create a more easily digestible duplicate of your existing video files. Right-click your file in the media pool and choose Generate Optimized Media. It could take a while, but in the end, it can make your video editing a lot faster and a lot smoother by just using new, less compressed files for the process itself. We have successfully solved the performance problem, and now we can finally play our timeline just by pressing space.
Cinch, cinch, clap, clap, clap.
You can see me doing this in the beginning of every video I make because it's very easy to sync the video files according to the audio waveforms from the clapping. A lot easier than dialogue, for example.
Let's go.
Alright, so this might be the first place we will need to make a cut. I wanted to do a full 360 here, but I didn't finish it. I just went halfway because I counted on myself finishing this in the post-production later. Always have the editing in mind when you're recording. So now we need to cut a part of the video and continue somewhere else. How? First of all, I recommend linking your clips that you're not going to be moving out of sync when you're moving all of them. It makes it a lot easier. You can see that they're linked or unlinked by looking at this little symbol of linking right here. G, unlinked, G, linked back. But the normal shortcut is Ctrl-Alt-L. But you can always download my keyboard shortcuts in the video description. We're gonna zoom all the way in, and these clips, now that they're linked together, are always going to move together, cut together, and do everything together. Now, using the playhead, we're gonna try to find the last point where I'm still spinning. It is very important to cut it during the movement and not after or before for this to make it really work. So that's around here, and now we're gonna cut it. I just pressed S and split this one clip into two different clips. Now we need to find the point where we want to continue our footage. So I'm gonna zoom out, move the playhead, and I think it's somewhere around here. Yeah, it's here. Now I'm gonna show you some more advanced ways to navigate your timeline. First up are arrow keys. Using the right and left arrow keys, you can jump one frame forward and one frame backward. Now, if you hold Shift while pressing the arrow keys, it's exactly 1 second forward or 1 second backward. That's also extremely useful. You can also use your keyboard by just typing numbers. For example, if I want to go 1 frame back, I can just type in -1 enter. Okay, that's 1 frame, but if I wanted to go, let's say, 15 frames, I don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but I can just type in -15 enter. You see how fast this can be? This also works with seconds, but you always have to add 2 zeros after the value. So if I want to go 4 seconds forward, I type in +4, 0, 0, enter. And this is not 400 frames, it's 4 seconds and 0 frames. This might seem a little too confusing in the beginning, but it's gonna come in handy in the future when you want to precisely measure something and don't wanna just mash buttons like crazy. I lost myself a little here, so I'm just gonna type in -400 again and get back where I started. We are going to again zoom way in and use our mouse and the playhead to find the exact spot where we would want to continue our video. And I think it's around here. Now I could just split the clip again using S and delete the footage using backspace. But now we have this unused space here that we don't want to have here. I can just go back using Ctrl-Z, select the clip again and delete it using delete. Now this deletes the unwanted footage and the space that's left in between. That's 2 steps in 1. But I can go even further. Ctrl-Z, Ctrl-Z. We're even gonna undo the cut itself. And here's where my custom shortcuts really shine, the Q and E. These are by far the most time-saving shortcuts because they execute 3 operations in 1 button press. I'm gonna press Q now. It's gonna make a cut, delete everything to the left, and delete the space that's left in between. So I can just press Q. 3 operations in 1 simple step. It's a little bit complicated again, but it's the most efficient way of cutting I've ever seen. So let's see how our new edit is working. We're gonna move the playhead a little bit, we're gonna zoom out a little bit and press space. You can really see it looks like 1 smooth move instead of 2. It is such a smooth connection because we really did cut it during the movement. And matching movement is one of the best ways to connect 2 pieces of footage. We just have a little bit of an audio issue here, and that's where the transitions come in. If you want to make an audio or video transition in DaVinci, you just click in between 2 clips and press Ctrl-T. You can see it made transitions on every single track because they're linked, and I'm not really sure I want this effect. I don't want any transitions on my video tracks, so I just click them with Alt to bypass the linking and press backspace to delete them. You can just repeat the same for the second video track, and now we are going to only use 1 of these audio tracks of me screaming because who would want to hear me twice, you know? So what we can do is simply put the mute switch on the track. That track was only useful for syncing the audio from the webcam with the audio from the gameplay. Now we can just delete the fade on the muted track because we don't need it, and this fade on the gameplay track we can make shorter or longer. Just click it with Alt or drag the ends of it again and drag it until you make it longer or shorter. As you can see here, DaVinci Resolve has a pretty aggressive snapping. That means even if I bring my mouse a little closer to the end of the second fade, my selected fade snaps to the same place. If you want to disable or just toggle snapping, just press the N key on your keyboard. Then you can make really fine adjustments to anything you can think of. Now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, make this fade a little bit longer and make this other one a little bit shorter. Now I'm going to listen to the whole thing and decide if I made the right adjustments. Well, it still sounds to me a little bit like I shouted twice instead of just once, and we definitely don't want that. What I'm gonna show you right now is a very advanced technique that's used even in Hollywood movies. I'm going to delete my fade with Alt, and I'm going to hover the mouse over the center where the two clips meet until I see arrows on both sides. And then I'm going to drag the sound from the first clip under the video from the second clip. Then I can of course press Ctrl T for a natural fade. So now we're just using the first shout from the first clip under the cut between both clips, which makes it really seamless, natural, and unrecognizable. You can really see and hear that it works very well here, and I just pulled off a really cool 360 shot. We can also take the webcam footage and do the same thing with it, so we drag it, the first clip, into the second clip. Now for some comedic effect, we can select some part of the webcam while holding Alt key again to bypass the linked group. Yes, the group you made earlier by pressing G or Ctrl-Shift-L, was it? Now you want to split the webcam using S just before the shout begins, so that you have a separate clip of it just for the duration of the shout. Now we want to make a duplicate of this small clip. You can do that by just holding Alt while clicking and dragging your clip elsewhere. You can see we have a duplicate. We have already learned how to manipulate a clip and adjust its attributes in the inspector. We can do that even with our new clip by just, for example, clicking the flip switch. Because the pieces of footage are on top of one another, it still looks like we only have one webcam, but if I just slide the X position slider a little bit to the right, you can see there are indeed two webcams. So now only for the duration of the shout, we're gonna briefly have two webcams for comedic effect. Brilliant, isn't it? The last clip we're gonna edit today is this little bit of real life footage where I make the 360 in real life with a gun, yeah. It already looks pretty amazing to me, but what I think would be even cooler is if we had this in slow motion. How to make something slow motion. I'm gonna show you the easy one first. Just right click the clip and select change clip speed. Here we want to slow the clip down, so for example down from 100 to let's say 25% speed. Now this is of course gonna make our 25 FPS footage look a bit choppy. In this case it isn't so bad because it greatly serves the comedic effect. However, if you wanted to experiment more, you can use some advanced frame interpolation tools in the Retime and Scaling tab in the inspector. I'm gonna show you what it does if we change the retime process to optical flow. This attempts to calculate the missing frames and make the footage smooth again. It doesn't really work at all times, as you can see, but it has specific use cases where it really shines. Clearly not this one. The other way to slow your clip down is to press Ctrl R to open the speed change dialog. This allows us to change the speed only in specific regions of our clip. So if we wanted to have normal speed up till, let's say here, just click the arrow and click Add Speed Point. Then from this point up until here, we want to have our footage in slow motion. So you can just add another speed point and then we want to have it in normal speed. Now just drag the upper arrow of the region you want to slow down and let's do, you know what, let's do 25% again. We had 25, we can do 25 again. And now this region of the clip is gonna be slowed down, and the first one and the last one are gonna play in normal speed. If you want to go really advanced, you can right click again and bring up the retime curve, where you can change the keyframe interpolation and make the transitions between different speeds smoother. But that's really a lot more advanced than anything I wanted to do here, so sorry, I guess. Using the same tools, you can not only make clips slower, you can also make them faster. Just make a new speed point, and instead of dragging the arrow to the right to make the clip slower, to stretch it, you can drag it to the left and make it faster. Ladies and gentlemen, that would be all for today. I'm gonna play with this video a little more until we'll see each other in the next tutorial, where we'll dive deep into DaVinci Resolve Fusion, titles, effects, and make something really cool and amazing. And believe me, Fusion is really kind of crazy and hard to explain, but I'm gonna do my best to make it as easy as possible for you. It's probably gonna be a little longer than I anticipated again, because, well, even this tutorial I've been recording for 45 minutes and been trying to get it down to, you know, these 25, 26. It's pretty hard to explain in a short and informative manner. I would also like to thank all of you who donated on Patreon. It means the world to me. Thank you. I will also appreciate all the comments, be it regarding the video or, you know, my English skills or anything you can think of. Write it down in the comments below. If you want to support me, you can also like the video or send it to your friends. And if you don't want to miss the next one, feel free to subscribe and ring the bell so the video will be sent right into your notifications. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and that, most importantly, you actually learned something. That's it. I'll see you in the next one.